接下来呢，我们现在要进行下午的第一场论坛。那么这一场论坛当然也是别具意义啊，我们要特别讨论的就是通往成熟区块链的企业级应用，像是我们到底要如何建立商业应用以及更加进一步的基础建设呢？ Ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to proceed to our very first panel discussion this afternoon. The topic for this panel discussion is making enterprise blockchain more mature, building business on an evolving infrastructure. 我们这一次呢会特别邀请7位嘉宾呢到台上来和大家一同的分享。Now, if I read your name, please proceed on to the stage. First of all, let's introduce and welcome our moderator for this panel discussion, Tim Culpan from Bloomberg Columnist. Hello, Tim. Next, let's welcome Gary Lowe from DiMuto, founder and chairman. Good afternoon, Gary. Sean Moss-Pultz, Bitmark CEO. Good afternoon, Sean. Now let us welcome Carl Wegner, Arthur Managing Director, Head of Asia. Good morning, Carl. Good afternoon. Now let's welcome Matthew Liu, Origin Protocol Founder and CEO. Good afternoon, Matthew. Now let us welcome Yi-Ling, SBI Bits Business Development Officer. Last but not least, let us welcome Rio Lee, CTBC Financial Holding Leader of Blockchain Lab. Welcome. Now, I'm going to pass it on to our moderator. Thank you very much.
All right, my microphone is working great. Thanks very much. So we're starting a little late, so we're cutting back from the original 40 minutes to 25 minutes. I hope you'll bear with us. It means we're all going to talk a lot faster. We've got a great panel, 6 people. I'm not going to introduce them all. They're all up there, and you can Google them yourself if you like, or go to the website. We're talking about enterprise. So this morning we heard the wonderful and inspiring speech from Neera Rubini, who is clearly a blockchain lover. But that was really talking a lot on the kind of the front-facing cryptocurrencies and so forth. One area that a lot of people forget about, and I know a lot of people in this room are aware of, is the enterprise uses of blockchain, public ledgers, and so forth. What we have on stage is 6 people who are really working in that arena. And we're going to throw some tough questions at them to try and justify why they think enterprise deployment of blockchain makes sense. My first question, which I'm going to throw at Sean and also Carl, is really the ongoing discussion of whether public or private blockchains make sense or which is superior. Sean, I know that you definitely have opinions on that. So, why is public or private better deployment of blockchain?
Tim, thanks. So you could have built a private blockchain in 1970. There's absolutely nothing new about this tech for a private blockchain. In fact, if your goal is a private blockchain, you're better off just using Git. There's great infrastructure, there's hashes, it's decentralized, and you're done. You don't need a blockchain.
I know that, at R3, you guys see it differently. You and your stakeholders are moving more towards the private arena, so...
Yeah, no, I don't want to, I'll say, from the other side, private blockchain is what enterprise, and again, let me define it. Private blockchain is what enterprises need to have a real product, a real solution that works. But it shouldn't really be private blockchain, distributed ledger technology. So let me take it to another level, right? So blockchain is a consensus mechanism that I don't think works for enterprise use. But
why though?
Well, because again, if you have to share information with everyone, no banks, it doesn't have scalability, and maybe it will in the future. But at the moment, to have scalability, to have the speed, the privacy issues, if you have banks, the smallest bank, the smallest cooperative bank in Taipei, to be on part of the banking system, has to have a database big enough to manage HSBC, Citibank, Deutsche Bank's, all their data. That doesn't make sense. So, it's a different way. Distributed ledger technology is a way of sharing data and maybe not using blockchain,
but
the consensus mechanism.
If you're going private blockchain, why not just use a database?
Well, because that doesn't work.
It is a database.
Well,
that's all it is.
Well, it is.
It's just a hyped-up database.
A database doesn't work when you have regulatory issues, geographic issues. You can't have one database. One database is the best system to use, the most efficient.
Shared database. These exist. They were on the 70s. You can share databases. A DLT is just a shared database. There's nothing special about it.
But is a private blockchain not just, you know, hyped up? Yeah, well, it's an oxymoron. But is it a solution without a problem?
Well, I mean, we see it's the solutions are being built right now, are live right now. So enterprises are beginning to use it right now. So blockchain is not the solution for everything. It's a tool. It doesn't. The only thing that blockchain always solves is you get budget if you say you're going to build it on blockchain, right? But otherwise, it's not a tool for everything. Absolutely not.
So, yeah, so you go to your marketing teams and say you've got a blockchain and then you get more money. But it does bring up the obvious question of there is some pretty ridiculously stupid uses of blockchain, whether private or public, but there's also some very inspiring uses of private and public blockchains. Matthew, sitting next to you, I know you're working exactly in that area, so I want to ask you, tell me some of the good examples and some terrible examples of use of blockchain.
Yeah, so I tend to agree with Sean, where blockchains are much more useful when you have numerous parties that don't trust each other, right? And so if you have just a couple businesses, they should use the permission database. If you have hundreds of companies or hospitals or whatever in a consortium, maybe that makes a little bit more sense. But the best use cases of blockchains are when you have the general public. You have millions of users that don't trust each other that need to be able to transact, and whether that's just exchanging value, like with Bitcoin, or something that we're working on at Origin is how do we allow people to trust each other and actually buy and sell goods and services, right? And so then you can leverage the unique properties of blockchain to allow these people to communicate with each other, to interact with each other, to develop reputation systems with each other, and then ultimately go into transactions with each other where they escrow funds until the delivery of goods and services. So we at Origin think that use cases where there are millions of people across the world, especially if they don't share the same type of banking systems, especially if they're across different geographies or have different types of languages or different customs, this is where the power of public blockchains makes a lot of sense.
Do you see a deployment right now that makes sense, one that is live now in real use, out of beta, out of a sandbox?
So, I mean, Bitcoin is the obvious example in that there's store of value and there's transfer of value, right? We actually have a prototype application and platform built on the Ethereum blockchain where we actually have live transactions. So we've done a couple thousand transactions where buyers and sellers are trading e-commerce products or contractor services. There's even been a couple home shares that we've been able to facilitate here at Origin. And so I think this is still the very beginning.
But why would that be
very
superior to,
early?
say, credit card or the existing systems? We've got PayPal, we've got Visa and MasterCard.
Totally.
Why is this approach better?
So today, when you have what we call two-sided marketplaces, right? You have a company like Uber, you have a company like Airbnb, you have eBay, Amazon. They have existing payment systems and payment rails that work really well, but these middlemen take large fees. So Uber takes 25% cut. Airbnb will take somewhere between 8%, 16% cut. There's hundreds of marketplaces all over the world that have the same rent-seeking business model. Now, if you can connect these individual buyers and sellers, right, whether it's a home sharing person that has an apartment, or an Uber driver, or a contract worker that does translations or graphic design or software programming across the world, then these individuals can connect with each other, right? We can remove those fees. I can actually contract with someone, let's say, in the Philippines for graphic design. My former Uber driver could potentially get a ride from Sean without having to pay 25% fees, and we think that this is a way for people to become much more empowered, right? This global sharing economy of this gig economy of people trying to be micro entrepreneurs.
These are all beautiful ideas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that it's a wonderful, scenario that the future world will all be on a blockchain and everyone will, sit around the campfire singing Kumbaya. But to date, deployment, especially enterprise deployment. You talked about Bitcoin as being, a deployment of blockchain.
Yes.
It is a very public deployment of blockchain. But I want to ask, and actually I want to ask Yi-Ling, who's got as much a banking background as anything else, what do you see as being the things that are holding back adoption or deployment of blockchain solutions, especially in enterprise? What is it that's stopping us from getting further ahead?
Okay, from my point of view, I have to say that in SBI as well, that we are actively looking for the expert in blockchain and also the IT engineers, because in Japan, of course, we have a lot of talents there, right? But we think that it's gonna be a global thing. So last year, we have been actively recruiting a lot of people from different worlds. In Taiwan alone, I have been referred about 5 engineers of my friend to working in SBI Biz right now. And according to all my colleagues, that they were saying that, because before I used to work in Goldman Sachs, and when I quit my job, joined SBI, everyone think that I'm crazy. But now everyone is asking me, so everyone now is asking me, hey, do you have any, opening in your company right now? So see, so I guess if you guys have any, people like friends who want to work in this field, they're welcome to contact me.
Is crypto the new investment banking? Is that where new graduates want to go? They don't want to go to Goldman anymore. They want to go into crypto. Is that what you think? Is that the way it's going to play out?
Well, I won't say that, but
Now, Rio, you're at CTBC, one of Taiwan's largest financial holding companies, and I know you've deployed some blockchain solutions with clients. What do you see as being, the thing that's holding back yourselves or the industry in general from deploying more blockchain solutions or a larger rollout?
I think that our solution is just to, because as the banking that a few weeks ago, everybody are talking about Libra, and that eventually maybe the technology company like blockchain or using the internet, maybe they will, just like Jimmy Dimon said, they will eat a lunch from the financial institution. But in the other way, that as the banking like CTBC, we also trying to provide our financial service to connect with the blockchain and to help that every transaction on the blockchain is correspondent with what happened in the real world, like in the financial institution. And maybe eventually, like the system, our system and our service will be useful, and that will be everywhere, just like the ecosystem will be everywhere. So for example, like Libra, like the topic you would say that maybe people debate is public blockchain or the private blockchain, which one is better, but like Libra, like in the first beginning will be permission blockchain at first for management or for control by the regulator or the others, but maybe in the future, then maybe that will be public blockchain for scalability and for everybody to use that. So as my perspective, my opinion, that we are going to prepare for it, to prepare for open our service.
You've already deployed at CTBC with KKBox. Anyone in Taiwan would know them. They're a streaming platform. Yeah. Also with life insurance companies. But that's just a couple of cases. But there's so many cases where it hasn't been deployed. Is there a lack of staff? Is there a lack of infrastructure? Everyone, of course, likes to blame regulation. But is there something that is holding back you, for example, from signing up 20 more clients to deploy blockchain into a financial holding company? What is the one thing that is getting pushback for you?
I think that the most hurdle of my industry is about like talent, because that people always blaming about regulator and complain about regulator, but sometimes regulators and us and also blockchain company, we also need a talent. We need a talent from different background, like maybe finance background and also cryptology, computer science, and different background. And I think the key point is that the talent need to outlook the end game far away, maybe 5 years or 10 years ago. But today is that everybody see the pricing about Bitcoin and Ether and up and down, and some people may be short side about this. So that would be a difficult part. And today is just like a good example to cooperate with CTBC is our honor. But some use case we have not seen the far value proposition of our business value. So we are just trying to collaborate with the good use case, have the long-term view. Yeah.
Gary, I want to ask you that same question, because you are actually deploying blockchain in real-world scenarios, supply chain for fruit and veg, for produce. Why is it not getting more widely adopted? What is holding you guys back, or your clients or your partners?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is that if you look at the people in the industries, either finance or people in the tech, there are not many people in the operations. So I spent 15 years as a banker, 12 years as a farmer and a packer and a seller of fruits. So, and I'm also running listed companies in compliance. So I think from my perspective is that the debate is not about the tech people against the finance people, but I think operationally, a lot of the times, a lot of the things that you talk to the packers and the growers, they don't need to know the tech. They need to understand what makes the money and who's going to pay for the cost. Because a lot of the blockchain about trust and trustless and everything else, permission or non-permission, who's going to pay it? A lot of people want the technology. Everybody wants providence. But if you look at it, no one wants to pay for it. So I think the adoption has been a bit slow is because a lot of the times the tech people come in and they don't understand the tech. No, they don't understand the operation.
Right.
And the finance people jump the gun a little bit and talk more about the finance. But
they don't understand the tech, do they?
yeah, I mean, how do you blockchain a durian, or how do you blockchain a apple, or even?
How do you blockchain a durian?
It's tough, right? Literally,
Is it smelly?
Yeah, well, those who love the smell, they love it. Those who hates the smell, sorry, put on a mask. But it's tough. You got to scan it. You got to basically take a picture about it. But then eventually, it's all about understanding that you got to make the data accessible. And I think we're more focused about the data so that we can actually make investment decision as a business owner. So I think for us to invest our money into whether it's the tech or the finance part, it's not just about the things that we just discussed. It really is, I think at the end of the day, for the people to adopt it more, it's really about, show me the money.
And is education, has the industry done enough in terms of education when you're going out and meeting a farmer and saying, hey, we think you should adopt a blockchain solution? Surely they look at you and shake their head and go, what the heck are you talking about? Why do I need that? Is that a big problem?
Yeah, I was just in Melbourne, right? And I was just talking to the farmers, and they are either the sheep farmers or farm farmers, or they're talking about citrus and grapes, and they go, what is the blockchain? So I think it's about education, but to be very fair, they think blockchain and crypto as one. But if you explain it beyond that, and the ledger where when Matthew says it's a big application when you talk about millions of people, but for our industry, we are talking about thousands of suppliers. So actually, we do need this trust system as well. So maybe we're not in the millions and not in the billions of global people, but when you're talking about 10,000 packers around the world, we need to have a trust system as well. So for us, using our blockchain on a more private blockchain format makes a lot of sense, because I don't need to tell the world or get the world to agree that this is an avocado. We don't need to go through a mining process to get that algorithm, right? So sometimes it doesn't really work from that perspective. So for us as investors, we're just sometimes, we're kind of agnostic, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who wins. It's just apply it so that we can use the data correctly.
But you mentioned one thing, and this is something that Rio and others have brought up, is, obviously the most famous use of blockchain is Bitcoin, right? Do you think that the fame and the infamy behind cryptocurrencies is helping when you talk to a farmer, or helping when you talk to partners because it's famous? People kind of know what it is, or they think they do. Or is it hurting because they think it's kind of a scam and they don't want to be anywhere near it?
I think that's a very good question, Tim. For our industry, who don't really talk about Bitcoin very often, when we explain the blockchain and the way we work, I think the way we explain is a CBA and an ABC. What I mean by that is, what is famous about crypto is CBA, it means currency before an asset. So that's sort of like what everybody is talking. But the way the industry is approaching it is a very basic ABC, an asset before the currency. Mm-hmm. So I think the way we approach it, if we explain it in an ABC format, then you go, oh, okay, I understand it now. I understand it better.
But then you have to break down what an asset is, what a currency is.
And in this case, we just say, if your apple is worth, let's say, $1,000 for one container, it's actually $40,000 for a container. So our asset value is actually very much dependent on the asset, which is the fruit. Mm-hmm. So it's very much like the real estate that you talk about. So similarly, we're just going after the basic level of asset first. And then after that, we say, can it be tokenized? Then people say, yeah, it makes sense, right? Because you can do an IOU and you can do a settlement. Because in our industry, that's where all the cost is all about. We're trying to reduce the friction in our trade because of the trust that is never there.
Carl, I want to ask you the same question. Obviously, with R3, so many of your consortium members are banks, financial holding companies, and so forth. Cryptocurrency has been, especially Bitcoin, has been criticized by many people in your industry. They think it's a scam. They think it's not going to go anywhere. Some believe that central banks will stop it. Do you think the fame and infamy of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is helping you paint the picture and sell the story, or do you think it's holding you back?
I'll answer that two ways. The first is that a lot has changed in 3 years, right? So 3 years, Bitcoin was blockchain, was distributed ledger. It was all Bitcoin, right? So now people understand that Bitcoin is a use case of blockchain. Whether they understand distributed ledger or not, maybe not, but they understand that blockchain is technology, Bitcoin is a product. So that's changed a little bit. So cryptocurrencies are...
Has that been a difficult education process? Because
Yes.
4 years ago, no one knew the difference.
Yes, yeah, very difficult. Because again, the whole thought was it's crypto, it's scary, it's and all the bankers and central bankers were afraid of it. But I mean, now there's the understanding of it. But I think that there's also the other thing that's changed, and I think in the last like maybe 6-9 months is that I think from the crypto world, not having regulation is the goal. Going to jail sort of sucks too. So, and then from the other side, from the bankers, they're realizing that blockchain, that tokenization, maybe not cryptocurrency, tokenization is a valuable way to manage information. So I think the two sides are beginning to come closer together, which it makes it very interesting because the bankers, we spend a lot of time with the regulators training them, so they're learning about tokenization. And again, I think from the maximalists, Bitcoin maximalists, they're also realizing that so having something that can be used, they don't have to be afraid to use, would be a good thing too. So I think the worlds are getting closer in the middle there, and that makes it quite interesting.
The other question I want to ask is, and I'm going to get to you in a moment, Sean, because I want you to answer my next question, is there's a lot of companies starting up. Sean, you run a startup. Yi-Ling, you invest in startups and build your own businesses. I'd be interested to know what companies you would want to merge with or buy or invest in now. What is going to be hot? Yi-Ling, from your point of view, from kind of the banking background and what you're doing at SBI, is there any, you're most welcome to name a company that you would like to buy, but certainly give us an idea of what would be hot or where mergers and acquisitions might happen in this space.
Okay, so basically, SBI has been investing in the blockchain industry for, I guess, over a few $100 million. And we not only invest in the company, but we also do the post-investment activities with Zolo's portfolio company. So just from my point of view, I think there are some companies that, for example, we invest in the wallet, KubiX in Taiwan, and there was a Tangent in Europe and Bread Wallet in US. I think we have been spending a lot of time doing the project with Len. I think if it's possible that we want to merge all these 3 companies together to make a big pie, but that's just, I know it's gonna be difficult.
Could you make that happen? Could you make them merge?
I mean, this is just an idea, right? But I guess if we're gonna say compete with all, people was talking about the Facebook coin, Libra, it's something that we definitely have to do in the future. And for investment, on the other side, since SBI is creating our own like FinTech 2.0, the digital asset ecosystem right now, we sort of still trying to figure out if we can find a good solution for the custodian service. But I won't name the company that we're actually looking at because I don't want to increase the valuation. And,
you can tell us. How much do you want to spend?
So that's something that we're actually actively looking at.
Now, Sean, you've got a startup going. You've got VC money. Who is your ideal buyer or merger partner?
A buyer. Okay, so first off, I don't want to sell. But if it was for enough money, everybody has a number at some point. If it was enough money, I would feel most comfortable selling to Apple because I believe that they actually do care about privacy and they do care about protecting people's rights. So,
what would that number be?
At least
if
$1 billion.
Tim Cook, $1 billion.
Yeah, north of $1 billion for sure.
All right, Tim Cook, if you're watching.
Yeah, anything less than that, we're going to keep going. And if we could buy anything, it would be the PCT. It's this kind of global entity that tries to help with patent registration in all these different countries. And I feel that the recording of rights and the protecting of rights to these assets on a global scale is something that no country can do. And so I'd think about that as being like the ideal use case for a public blockchain.
And so that brings me to the last question, which I'll ask you and I'll ask a few others, is if you gaze into the crystal ball, 5 years from now, what would be the most common or most public or most famous use of blockchain beyond any cryptocurrency? 5 years from now, what will people see it being used for, Sean? What do you think? 5 years from now, what will cryptocurrencies? I'm asking Sean first because you're in the space.
Yeah, you bet. I think it's almost impossible to tell, but what I would say is this, is that all of the banks, all of the hospitals, all of the people that record value, their back-end infrastructure will be run entirely on a blockchain. They will be applications of blockchains, just like the telcos right now run everything over the internet. There is no more long distance. It's completely dead. Everything goes over the internet.
Carl, quickly, we're running in just 30 seconds. What do you think 5 years from now?
Same thing. I think that, you know,
Public blockchain, though.
What? Well,
Public blockchain.
we can do. We'll talk in 5 years. But no. But I think hopefully in 5 years, it's actually an infrastructure that people don't even know what it is, right? People that are using the solutions, you know, that layer TCP. You know, no one talks about that when they use the internet, right? So I mean, blockchain will be a base layer.
It'll be used but hidden. People just won't notice it.
It's a functionality that solutions are built on top of, and I think in probably 5 years, a lot of things will be built on blockchain, and no one will know it's on blockchain. It's just accepted.
Matthew, finally, you've got
Yeah,
the
so
last-
I largely agree here. I think the really exciting thing about this is the unknown unknowns. What are the things that are going to happen next 5 years that no one actually knows about? But again, it should be invisible to end consumers. They don't need to know it's blockchain.
Is there one
They don't-
specific usage?
Global payments.
Global payments. That's it.
Everyone will be paying with some sort of stable currency, whether it's Libra or something else, but there will be global payments that are accepted all around the world.
Fair enough.
Backed
All right.
by blockchain and crypto.
Global payments 5 years from now. That wraps it up. We're out of time. Please thank our panelists here on stage.
Thank you again, Tim, and the distinguished guest speakers. Again, thank you very much for this wonderful panel discussion.